Let's talk a little bit of cricket. We have the county tour lads rocking and rolling. We got Brett Randall, Central District seamer. He's joining Somerset. Didn't play the last round, but he is playing the next round, I hope. He was signed, so you wouldn't sign an overseas player for them not to play. But we also have Fraser Sheet, Canterbury seamer. He's playing for Glamorgan. We got Michael Ray, Canterbury seamer. He's playing for Warwickshire. And Logan Van Beek. He is playing for Worcestershire. And he took 6 wickets in his first game. And that's the same Worcestershire team that Nathan Smith was playing for before he got his Blackcaps contract. I did see Wellington Cricket tweeted out on the back of this news that Nathan Smith and Josh Clarkson have Blackcaps contracts. It's Nathan Smith is a Blackcap. Not yet. He's got a Blackcaps.
He will be, but yeah.
He's got a Blackcaps contract. He's not necessarily a Blackcap.
That's a no ball for overstepping there.
Yeah. Nathan Smith in the Plunkett Shield, right? So if he took 33 wickets and an average of 17, what do you think his average is in the county championship this year with 27 wickets?
Won't quite be 17, because I don't remember him taking big hauls the way he did in a couple of those Wellington games, but it'll be solid 23, 24?
21.1. So his last Plunkett Shield campaign, he averaged 17 with the ball, 2.9 RPO. First season of county championship cricket, he's averaging 21 with an RPO of 3.1. So that's a good 12 months for Nathan Smith with the ball. I still think he probably needs to start the Plunkett Shield season on fire to really stamp his mark and demand Blackcap selection. I do think he will debut in ODIs and T20s to ease him into the Blackcaps group before because they've only got the 3 tests against England, so he could be an interesting backup seamer for one of those tests, like maybe the second or third test. Let's see what I don't think he's a bad white ball bowler. Like, yes, his best cricket's probably the long form cricket, and he does average 27 with the bat in first class cricket. List A cricket, he's got an average of 31.9, but then he's got a T20 bowling average of 23.4. Very good list A batting average, 26.4, and he's T20 cricket, he bats down the order, so he's got a lower average, 14.8, but he's got a career strike rate of 128.4, which is pretty healthy coming in down the order. So I do think he can add value to the Blackcaps in ODI and T20 cricket. But it's just his experience. He dominated the Plunkett Shield last summer. And now he's had a fantastic winter in the county championship cricket. In county championship cricket. And I do not think there is another Kiwi cricketer who has... It's not pressure, because he's under no pressure to perform. Maybe just more intrigue about how he starts the Plunkett Shield. Because you imagine early season Plunkett Shield might be more seam-friendly conditions, a bit more rain around, overcasty, coming out of winter and spring. Those conditions might be perfect conditions for Nathan Smith to start the season. And again, I think if he dominates Plunkett Shield cricket to start the summer, he will be one of the key lads to watch out for entering the Blackcaps this season.
Yeah, I like his career arc so much, like because he used to play for Otago, wasn't it? And he was a good, solid player. Then he moves franchises. Then he improves even further. Quite a few guys, I've heard you mention this, like quite a few guys have gotten a little bit of a development boost by moving to Wellington as well. He's one of them, maybe even one of the main ones right now. And then because he had a Plunkett Shield that was good enough which, if circumstances had broken right, he could have played Test cricket off the back of that. As it happens, a lot of good seam bowlers. Even at a time where they were experimenting with a few other different seam bowling options, like Will O'Rourke got a Test debut and Ben Sears got a Test debut. Smith just found himself a little further, just a little bit too far down the line, or maybe just a little bit too, timing not quite right there. Then he went and backed up everything he did in the Plunket Shield by playing county cricket and continuing to play really well and gets a contract off the back of that. So I love that career arc. There's a guy who continually seems to just improve his game. And that is a nice trait to be bringing into the Blackcaps environment, because there's a few guys in that team who maybe it's not lack of talent, it's maybe just that they've plateaued a little bit in the last 12 months. And not saying that needs a shake up. It doesn't need a shake up in terms of personnel. It just needs guys to find a little bit more consistent form. But bringing in younger, hungrier guys is always a good spark for making that happen. And Nathan Smith has, continued to take positive strides forward in his career whenever he's been presented with opportunities. So you got to love that in the cricketer. You got to love that trait.
He is 26 years old right now, and he made his first class debut in 2016. So it's like 8 years ago. I think he was 17 or 18 years old. Let's see who he was playing his debut with and against. Otago, that's when Michael Bracewell was still with Otago. Jimmy Neesham was still with Otago. They had Anaru Kitchen, Derek DeBorder, and I think he might have done some good stuff. Did he didn't score any runs, took a couple of wickets. Who did he get out? Dean Brownlee, Anton Devchich, Daryl Mitchell playing for Northern Districts. And that Northern Districts team had Daniel Flynn, Dean Brownlee, BJ Watling, Barrett Popley, Anton Devchich. Like that was 8 years ago. There is this group of cricketers coming through. So we've seen Dean Foxcroft play Blackcaps cricket. Tim Robinson has entered the Blackcaps. Aditya Ashok has played international cricket for New Zealand. Will O'Rourke, Ben Sears made their Test debuts last summer. And Josh Clarkson also made his debut for the Blackcaps last summer. So you can see how this is add in Rachin Ravindra, add in Glenn Phillips. That's almost the team right there of new, again, a lot of these dudes, they played ODI cricket a few years ago. They played T20 cricket a few years ago. That's where you get the development plan idea from. So Ben Sears has been on the Blackcaps T20 scene for random tours for a while. Now he's just entering the Blackcaps Test team. But if you look at how these players are being used under the new selection regime, Glenn Phillips coming into the Test team as an all-rounder, Rachin Ravindra batting number 4, Tim Robinson getting a crack, Josh Clarkson getting an opportunity, Will O'Rourke getting an opportunity, Ben Sears getting an opportunity in Test cricket. This is a cluster of young players who are getting different opportunities across the formats, but also more prominent roles, as opposed to just here's a random T20 opportunity. The one dude I've been thinking about with regards to maybe playing Test cricket this summer is Ben Lister, who has a first-class bowling average of 25.7. But I don't think he's in that contracted pool, which in theory would mean that Nathan Smith got a contract ahead of Ben Lister, which again may not mean anything. But if the Blackcaps do, I've got Ben Lister as the next best lefty, and he's kind of the only lefty to choose from. You do have someone like Ray Toole in the circuit, but Ben Lister's already played cricket for New Zealand. He's got a fantastic domestic record. So he's someone I'd watch out for if the Blackcaps need a lefty in the Test series against England in Kiwi conditions this summer. But like guys like Henry Shipley, Ben Lister, they shouldn't be overlooked as contenders for selection. You would imagine that Nathan Smith getting his contract is just like a reward for everything he's done over the past 12 months. And the good thing about dudes dipping out of the contract is that the emerging cricketers get contracts so they can get into that full-on training system in the Blackcaps that, like what I was saying about an NRL preseason, if you do strength and conditioning training with the Blackcaps, you're going to get better. If you're doing the Blackcaps fielding training, you're going to get better. Although the Blackcaps have started to drop a lot of catches over the past few years, but the whole system, the Blackcaps training system, the skill system, sharing information, that does make players better. And like Ben Lister, Henry Shipley, they've already played cricket for New Zealand. And then you bring in someone like Nathan Smith and you give them the opportunity to be part of that training system. I think it's going to be highly beneficial. And thinking back to the T20 World Cup squad, I do feel like there was a lack of Blackcaps power hitting. That's where you're going to start to see Josh Clarkson become a factor, even in the ODI team, because he's a good all-rounder, but he is a power hitter. He's not like a pinch hitter up the top. Again, like the Warriors need some speed, they're going to get their speed next season, assuming they select Tane Tuapiki. Blackcaps need some power hitting. Tim Robinson's a power hitter up the top, pinch hitter, and then you've got someone like Josh Clarkson adding some warmth down the order.
Yeah, that's I'm just thinking about that. The sort of power hitters that the Blackcaps have at their disposal, because they have like Glenn Phillips is powerful. Glenn Phillips hits a huge six. Guys like Ravindra Conway, maybe not so much about power as it is about timing. They both can hit big sixes, but it's a little bit more about just like clean hitting. Finn Allen, depending on how much he plays now that he's ducked out of a contract and from a more vulnerable position than where Devon Conway was ducking out of his contract. A power hitter, but a power hitter in the way where like you see the machine working with him. Like it's you see him really swinging into the a lot of hand speed. And just really not a lot of foot speed though, not a lot of leg speed with Finn Allen. Doesn't really move the legs too much, but he swings those arms pretty quick. But you see him working for it, whereas Clarkson is powerful, and you see how powerful he is when he hits the ball, but also it feels a little effortless is the wrong word. It's not like it's effortless because you can see he's a big dude swinging a heavy bat and the ball goes a long way, but he feels like a big hitter in the way that like Jacob Oram used to be a big hitter. He's just like, it's just physical strength, being able to pummel a ball. Whereas Finn Allen is, and a lot of these other guys, it's like their power comes from timing, or their power comes from really just throwing everything into it. Whereas Clarkson can just crunch a cricket ball. And I don't know that they've had that type of hitting in the team for a little while. So maybe Michael Bracewell, I think, would apply to that. He actually has a bit of both. He's a bit of like clean timing and also just a massive bloke who can hit, who like, doesn't skip out on the gym, and he can smash a cricket ball. He can sort of do both of those things. But I mean, Michael Bracewell was injured for a little while there, and we saw that they did actually really quite miss him, particularly at the ODI World Cup. So there's always a need for that type of player, I think, particularly if it's just someone you can, maybe not a first 11 player, you can just call them up. Like Nathan Smith's ability is a little more obvious in how that might fit into a Blackcaps lineup. Clarkson maybe less so, but that is the type of player who actually is, very handy to have around, because you can never hit too many sixes.
I just got a list of players, like notable players without contracts who I think will play a lot of Blackcaps cricket over the next year or so. Tim Robinson, Ben Lister, Henry Shipley, Zak Foulkes, Mitch Hay wicketkeeper. Right, that's the depth in New Zealand cricket where none of those dudes have Blackcaps contracts, but all of those dudes can contribute to the Blackcaps across multiple formats. And one last thought to just simmer away in your mind and the listener's mind. Like, what's if Tim Robinson gets an opportunity at the top of the order for the Blackcaps and he just starts smashing boundaries everywhere? Fenelon's like, where does he sit? You know, like, okay, Lockie Ferguson, Adam Milne, they dipped out of the contracts, but what's if Will O'Rourke just snaps up lots of wickets? Suddenly Nathan Smith is a wicket taker for the Blackcaps. Like, I can see a situation. Yes, Fenelon's good at cricket. Lockie Ferguson's good at cricket, but if those dudes are overtaken in performances for the Blackcaps, they won't be factors anymore. And that's their decision. And Eve, like, I don't know, what's if Devon Conway doesn't score many runs over the next couple of months for the Blackcaps in Test cricket? And then some young batter or some emerging batter takes their opportunity. Then you're not a factor anymore. And that's the flip side of dipping out of your contract. Is I think it's more pertinent now where the Blackcaps have a bit more depth and the talent of these emerging players is better. And it's like based on who these dudes are, like who Fenelon is, who Devon Conway is, who Lockie Ferguson is, you would assume that they would be losses for the Blackcaps. But an alternative situation to ponder is that maybe the players who take their spots in the Blackcaps teams perform better, because remember, the Blackcaps stunk up the T20 World Cup. They've had a dip in performance in Test cricket. They were solid at the ODI World Cup, making the semi-final. But I'm throwing it out there, like the next dudes up might take their opportunities, and then you're just lost into the oblivion.
And that's the risk, isn't it? When you step away from a contract, is you do leave the door open for someone else. If you're saying I'm not going to be available for every game, well, then someone else comes in and plays those games you're unavailable for. They score more runs than you. If they take more wickets than you, they play more cricket than you, and that is earned. Like you've allowed that door to be left open. But if someone else comes in and plays better, you can't have any complaints about that. You know, that's how it's supposed to work. That's the currency at play here. So that is an interesting little dynamic we've got going with this little flurry, I guess, of players who have. Because when you said here's a list of players without contracts, I'm thinking, okay, are you going to say Devon Conway, Kane Williamson, Fenelon, Lockie Ferguson, Adam Milne, etc., etc. I think Jimmy Neesham also doesn't have a contract. I wonder how. I do wonder where Jimmy Neesham, because he's probably one of those power hitters as well. Chuck him on that list, but I wonder where he sits now with Clarkson coming in. Sort of maybe that's a little bit of a changing of the guards moment as well, as someone who does, very similar type of player. Obviously, Neesham with a lot more kind of international pedigree, but he's also older, so that's that could be a little bit of an element to this announcement as well. But there's the fact that you could reel off just like a half a dozen players without even needing to really think about it, of guys who most if not all of those guys, I think everyone except Mitch Hay, you said, has played already for the Blackcaps in some extent. That's some nice depth. And when you get a lot of nice depth, you get a lot of different players getting options. You get to have that choice of being like, well, whoever scores the runs, whoever takes the wickets, we keep picking them. And that's kind of a bit of a situation that the Blackcaps find themselves in now, which we'll probably see over the next, I don't know, 12 months, whatever, until the next time the contracts are announced, of like this jostling for positions where there are suddenly all these players, because you've got these guys who are established Blackcaps who will still play for the Blackcaps a fair bit in some cases, but aren't on the contract list. You've got contracted guys who supposedly are going to get games, and you've got guys even who don't have contracts yet, but are clearly pushing towards getting contracts in the future. There's a lot of shuffling in that deck to be done,
And that shuffling is organised by runs and wickets.